So today, we're going to dive into a story from Brazil's not-so-distant past, a really powerful and deeply personal one. We're going to look at the desaparecidos, the disappeared, during the military dictatorship, but we're going to do it through the eyes of one family, the de Oliveras, and their agonizing 7-year search for their daughter.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That one sentence from a mother, Felicia de Oliveira, it just captures the absolute heart of this nightmare. It's this unbearable limbo, right? This legal and emotional black hole that's created when a government just refuses to say what it did. For the de Oliveira family, those 7 years of just agonizing silence were shattered in an instant, all because of a newspaper article. But the confirmation it brought? Well, it was anything but official. Can you even imagine? You pick up the morning paper and there it is, a story based on a leak from some anonymous general, and it names political prisoners who'd been tortured and killed. This wasn't some government press release. This was a total bombshell, just dropped right in the middle of the public square. And there, in black and white, was their daughter's name. For her parents, Felicia and Edmundo, that newspaper clipping was the most official word they had ever gotten about what happened to her. After 7 years of nothing, this is how they found out? So to really get the sheer weight of that newspaper article, we have to go back. We have to go back to the very beginning, to the day the de Oliveira family's nightmare started. This timeline just lays out the cold, hard reality of their search. January 30th, 1972, their daughter's taken. A few days later, a friend calls with the terrible news. For the next 10 months, her mother, Felicia, is on this frantic search. Then, whispers of her death surface in August. But it takes almost 7 years for even an unofficial, public confirmation to show up. The most devastating part? It's the huge gaps, the months and years of absolute silence. And what's so powerful here is how immediate that fear was. Felicia's words, you can tell, she didn't just worry her daughter was in prison. She knew she was being tortured. She called it an uninterrupted agony, this oppressive terror that just grabbed hold of her and never let go. Now, the family didn't just sit back and wait. Not at all. Felicia launched this incredible, relentless search. But at every single turn, she was met with a wall of official, completely deliberate silence. I mean, just look at the scope of this. Felicia wasn't just making phone calls. She was physically out there combing the cities, security agencies, prisons, hospitals, even cemeteries and churches. She was desperate for any trace, any record, any person who would just talk to her, all while the government officially claimed they knew absolutely nothing. And the toll of this frantic 7-year search wasn't just emotional, it was brutally physical. The constant stress, the grief, it led Ms. Oliveira's father, Edmundo, to suffer 2 serious heart attacks. This official silence was literally breaking the family apart. This part is just surreal. On one side, you have the government filing 6 legal actions against a person they claim not to even have in custody. And on the other, the family files 5 writs of habeas corpus, which is a legal demand to present a prisoner, and the government just straight up ignores the last 2. The state was actively prosecuting a person it refused to produce. It's mind-bending. So if all the official channels were dead ends, you might be asking, how did the family get any information at all? Well, the answer is in the huge difference between what was said on the record and what was whispered off of it. Here's that contrast, side by side. Officially, complete denial. Authorities never even admitted they took her. But unofficially, through sympathetic people here and there, Felicia started to piece together this fragmented story, a transfer to a hospital for kidney problems, and then, just a few months later, the devastating news that she had died. And to understand why the family's legal fight was so hopeless, you have to know about this, Institutional Act Number 5, or AI-5. This decree basically wiped out the most basic constitutional rights for political crimes. As Felicia herself put it, it made filing for habeas corpus technically useless. But they did it anyway, just to let the regime know they were watching. Okay, so let's go back to 1979. That newspaper article, it wasn't an ending. For Felicia and so many other families, it was actually the start of a whole new phase of their fight, a much more public one. She took her personal tragedy and turned it into a public cause. Felicia joined up with other families who had gone through the exact same pain, forming these amnesty committees to fight back. They realized that their individual stories were all part of a larger, systemic crime, and they decided they had to take coordinated legal action. And they had a really clear strategy. Step 1. Get the journalist who wrote the story on the stand. Step 2. Force him to name his source, that anonymous general. And Step 3. Subpoena that general and make him confirm under oath that the list was real. The whole goal was to turn an anonymous leak into official legal testimony. But even in this fight, Felicia was a realist. This quote is so telling, isn't it? She knew Brazil's democracy was still on shaky ground. She understood that if they pushed too hard for punishment, it might be too soon, maybe even dangerous. Her focus wasn't on retribution. At least, not yet. And that right there brings us to the very core of her quest. More than punishment, more than revenge, what Felicia de Oliveira wanted was the simple official truth. She wanted the government to finally admit what they did, to end that horrible legal limbo, and to give her daughter back her story. You know what? The de Oliveira family's search for truth leaves us with this really difficult question, one that goes way beyond Brazil. When you're dealing with state-sponsored silence, how can a nation ever really find justice when its own democracy is still trying to find its footing? And how do you balance that profound human need for truth with the delicate task of building a lasting peace?